and gentlemen, you are more than welcome to this morning's special edition of the Coffee at 11 show, brought to you by wigwam.ie SME Peer Support. This time on a sunny Tuesday morning, and our special guest is Graham Burns, who's zooming in from his property in County Limerick. Graham, very good morning. Say hi and show us your coffee mug, please.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome, as Colm says, to a very sunny Castletroy here in County Limerick. Here's my my coffee mug. Good days always involve coffee. That's something that Colm O'Brien has drilled into me over many a conversation over the years. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity to chat to you this morning, and hopefully we might get some insights into what I'm seeing in my part of the world anyway, and maybe other people might be to share theirs as well too.
Fabulous, fabulous, Graham, and it's lovely to have you, and thanks for taking the time out to come on. So let me tell you a little bit about Graham Burns before I bring the man himself in. Graham is a regional director with CPL, as I call them, the recruitment people. What does your business do? Recruitment, staffing solutions, talent transformation. How long is the business established? Since 1990, and he points out it's 30 years old now, and there's an exclamation mark against that, so I expect you can't believe it's 30 years old. How many employees? 1,000 plus, 1,000 employees plus. You think you guys have got problems? So as a respected leader for the last 20 years, Graham has had the privilege of delivering tailored talent acquisition and management solutions to some of the world's most respected organizations. He's passionate about the transformation effect that the right people can have on the success of an organization. And I expect the corollary is also true, the wrong people on the unsuccess of an organization. And he's proud to lead a motivated and knowledgeable team of like-minded professionals, at the core of which is his love driving first-class customer service with a people-centric approach to everything that he does. And something that I didn't know about this young man is that he was also, in a previous career, a school teacher. Didn't see that one coming, Graham. So Graham, it's lovely to have you on the Coffee at 11 show this morning, lovely sunny morning, and you're more than welcome. So I'm going to hand over to you, if I may, and I'd ask that you would introduce us to the man behind the legend, right? Who is Graham Burns? Where were you born? You know, bring us through those early years up to when you got involved in CPL, please.
First of all, you used a word there, young. I mean, I'm not so sure that I recognise the definition of what that word is, but yeah, Graham Burns. Yeah, there's a question. Originally, like yourself, Colm, a dub, exiled here in Limerick, and have been now for 26, 27 years. I guess, you know, I was in college back in the day. That was in another great Irish recession of the early to mid 80s. And in fact, at that time, I always remember on the back of Dunleary Pier was painted, last out, turn off the lights, was the famous kind of poster at that time. And so I suppose, like a lot of Irish folk then and in previous generations, were natural traveling folk, and so I went over to the UK, and I worked there for a number of years. I had actually qualified as a school teacher in Ireland and in Dublin beforehand, and worked on a part-time basis within a couple of schools. Wesley College and St. Columba's College were places that I had taught. Rugby was a big part of what I did back in the day. I was probably about 20 years too early. At least I tell my children that anyway, in terms of the professional game. They still wouldn't agree with me. So went over to the UK and did a bit of teaching over in the UK. But really the system is very different there. I call it almost like an educational apartheid, and I don't mean to be in any way disrespectful to people who might be on the line who went to the educational system, went through the system in the UK. But felt, no, that really wasn't where I wanted to go. I wanted to get into some sort of people-focused business, and I started on the bottom rung of the ladder in terms of the recruitment industry, and quickly found that it was something that allowed me relationship develop with people, build credibility with people, and you know, quickly found that there was something that I really enjoyed. And I guess, you know, in many ways I've taken that all the way through to where we are today. We, myself and my wife Karen, we met over in the UK, having known each other from Ireland, and we both came back here 1993. I can still remember the conversation that ensued. My mother sent over a copy of the Irish Times. That was how you found jobs back in the day here on the Friday supplement. Looked at a job. Karen's got a pharmaceutical background. Saw the job, rang her immediately and said, hey, we got this job. Looks like it's made for you. We can go home. And she goes, great, where is it? And I said, it's in Shannon. Needless to say, there was an expletive which followed that particular statement. But as I say, 25 years later, we're still in this region. Now jobs have changed and things have obviously moved on. But yeah, I came back to here, started with a business some of you may be familiar with, Limerick-based recruitment firm called Richmond Recruitment. Worked through them for about 14 or 15 years, and then CPL came along, as they do and as they have done in the past, acquired acquired Richmond Recruitment in 06, 07. And I've managed the Limerick operation and bits of Cork and Galway since. Yes, there's been chops and changes and challenges and ups and downs like anyone else. And where I'm at today is managing teams predominantly that work with our customers on the ground, that are on site, delivering mainly temporary and contract type solutions, short-term, long-term staffing issues, and making sure that a company that are looking to grow or downsize, we're able to handle their particular requirements. So challenging, competitive business, but still retains a lot of what I like to do, and that is that whole people and relationship piece. I think if anything coming out of this pandemic, I'm certainly challenged in that a vital tool in the toolkit, if you like, Colm, is one that is, a people person, and you're out at events, you're meeting people, and that tool has largely been removed from the toolkit. And so you have to reinvent yourself, and that's a challenge. But I think those who will reinvent themselves more effectively get back rooted to what your values are. If you're able to develop relationships and have credibility around a strong value system, core values, of respect and communication, I think that'll, hold true in a virtual world. And I'm already seeing that. I'm seeing good evidence of that. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. That's a really wonderful potted history. Very rich there. And I think we all journeyed with you. I loved that thing last, out turn off the lights on Dunleary Pier. That's just brilliant. Mm. I remember those days, dare I say it. And then the very real thing of your mother sending you over the Irish Times with the jobs in it, right? Yeah. There was no Zoom and there was no Skype and there was none of that stuff.
You got the odd packet of Tato and Club Gold Grain and various other Barry's Tea. You got those sort of things as well. So they were just the apron strings being Oh, absolutely
dangled. The apron strings being dangled. But look, it's great stuff. It reminded me of just a really quick story. Years ago, I went on a cycling holiday in France, and there were three of us, and we lost one of our colleagues, so myself, my brother, and a friend, right? And we got to Monaco on our bikes, and we had no idea where this guy was. He was somewhere along the Riviera, right? So we said, what do we do? We'll ring our ma, right? So we rang our ma from a payphone, right? And you know what she says? Ferg is our friend. Ferg's ma has just been on the phone. He's back at Nice Station. You got to go back and pick him up. So they were the jungle drums back in the day. Of course, we're showing our age here. The other thing I found really interesting, Graham, was when you said to your, I presume, girlfriend at the time, now wife, we're moving to Shannon, and she had this response. I am from Dublin, you're a Dub, so there was this thing back in the day that the Midwest was the Wild West, and you and I have found that in fact that's not at all the case. It's a wonderful place to live, work, and play. Do you want to talk about that transition?
Yeah, it's still to this day something. I've just come off a call before this one, a team call, and you still hear, oh, what's life like in Limerick? What's life like in the Midwest? However, having said that, there have been really dark days. Thank God they're well and truly behind us. I can still recall January 2009 when the Dell announcement happened. I can still recall, you know, all the stories of, and it's been well publicized, around antisocial behavior and crime, etc. But you know, I look at where we are now, and from what I see of, you know, inward investment, of a real change agenda, a hugely collaborative network of business, academia, public sector. The energy and the momentum is absolutely massively with us. Yeah, take out the last 3 months and maybe the next 3 in terms of this pandemic, and you know, we'll have to emerge slightly differently. But you know, when you look at, you know, the proposed M20 coming the other side, you see yesterday confirmation that the Opera Centre, they're going to have builders on the ground. You're going to see a seismic shift in this particular region that, you know, pound for pound is well ahead of other areas in the country. We've a really rich tapestry of industry, both multinational and SME. There's a strong educational sector here with the 3 institutes on our doorstep that, you know, we should be in awe really of some of the R&D activity and some of the value that gets added to the region. For my sins, I'm a board member with Limerick Chambers, you know, Colm, and you know, I get to see and I get to hear, and you hear the challenges, and don't get me wrong, that, you know, I don't think I can sit here as a director in CPL and not acknowledge, you know, how difficult it is right now for people who are particularly involved in hospitality, retail, you know, and the sectors that have been so badly hit, travel, tourism. So, you know, we're certainly, you know, in a challenging time, but, you know, all based on what I've said in terms of that underpinning of where we are, I think we're in a really good place. And I'd actually be pretty positive. You see the figures in terms of COVID-19 yesterday. I'd be positive that we're making really good strides. And let's not forget it, we're the only English-speaking country in the 26 or 27 countries in the EU now. I think with the disarray that the UK is in, we could really emerge much stronger than we have before, thereby, you know, enhancing our already strong reputation nationally and internationally.
I love it, Graham. You're clearly a man who's at the center of things. I love the fact that your industry and your role in the industry has put you at the center. You've got a macro view of what's going on, and I think that's really important. It's lovely to hear, and that's one thing I wanted to achieve with this little Coffee at 11 series, was bring real people in and allow them to share their experiences and their worldview. Mm-hmm. So I, you know, hats off to you for all the good work you do. By the way, you know, you're on the board of Limerick Chamber. Of course you are, because, you know, you're the type of individual who realizes that a rising tide lifts all boats. So there's no point in us sitting in our silos, in our little castles, and sucking our thumbs and saying things are terrible. We got to, if whatever we can do, we should. And I think that's what you're doing, and continued success with that. Continued success with that. And by the way, I remember years ago, Ed Walsh of UL he made a presentation, and if my hand is the map of Ireland, you've got Dublin over here, and it's a heavyweight, right? Obviously in terms of focus and people, etc. But he said if you connect Limerick, Galway and Cork, you know, you've got a very strong counterweight, and that's what the M20 I think will complete, and Limerick happens to be at the centre of that.
Yeah, I'd actually pull you up there, if you don't mind.
Please do. Have I any choice?
I have a kind of a view that, you know, we've long since argued in this part of the world that we, you know, as you say, because of where we're situated, we should be the ideal location for that counterbalance. I think when we talk about counterbalance, inherently we're talking a bit of a chip on our shoulder, and and we're coming from a position of maybe, dare I say it, an inferiority complex. So I actually look at it the other way. I look at that and I say, well, look at what we can stand on in terms of our own merits. Look at the size of the city, what a wonderful riverfront we have. We can orientate that differently. We look at the airport and its international access, the 3 educational institutions that we have that are, you know, the envy of so many. And, you know, we're 2 hours away from the capital city. You can't deny Dublin as a modern European capital, and I think a strong capital means a strong country elsewhere. But, you know, the counterbalance argument, I actually, you know, have a view that we're good enough to be equal on that seesaw. And it, you know, it's a competition. Sure, we got to differentiate ourselves, but at the same time, let's not bring any baggage to the table before we have that kind of conversation. So I wouldn't say suitably corrected, but I think
no. But I'll accept suitably corrected, because I feel duly suitably corrected, very, very duly suitably corrected, or informed. Let's just go with that, right?
Sure.
But I think we should start a campaign, Graham for mayor. That's the feel, right?
Yeah, I've seen the pay scale, and you know what? If I'm in the market for a good agent, I know where I'll come looking to drive that campaign. Fulham O'Brien.
Career, no, happy days. That was lovely. That was genuinely delighted with that response. Thank you for that. Because it goes back to what I said earlier, Graham. You've got a particular worldview, and if we all thought the same, sure, it'd be boring. So it's wonderful. So thank you for that. So Graham, prior to COVID, last year you did a wonderful presentation, gave a wonderful presentation on the future of work, and it blew me away, right? And I'll just give the viewers and the listeners here one takeaway I took from that, and that was in 2019, this man stood up in front of a room full of people and said, by 2025, 6 years from that date, 65% of all people would be working on a contractor basis. And I was sort of horrified. But, you know, he stood there and he said that this is what's going to happen. And he was talking about AI and all sorts of stuff, right? So I was blown away. It was the best thing I'd seen in years, right? And of course, we roll on less than a year, really, or perhaps a year. And here we are now, and the world has shifted. So I'm really curious, Graham, what's the world like now, and where do you see it headed, please? Future work.
Yeah, yeah, look, I mean, first thing I'll caveat is don't have the crystal ball, but certainly I'm still, you know, of the opinion that when we emerge from this crisis that we're in, we're going to see a significant increase in that whole flexible work, or sometimes people is labeled as the gig economy. But what I think has really highlighted for me, and I'd even go and I'd look at, you know, I'm really proud in many ways. I had a conversation with a guy from the States there a number of weeks back, and he was bemoaning leadership in the US, and I suppose I should choose my words carefully unless we're being monitored here by the CIA. But, you know, it really brought home, you know, we live here in Ireland, and, you know, we're really proud of the fact that, you know, we have a social conscience in this country. And I thought you saw that in the election. If ever there was a message, you know, housing, health, and education were the three big, you know, noises that came out of it for me. And so therefore we need to realign ourselves. And, you know, it's almost coincidental that we then have an election with those messages come out of it. The pandemic arrives, and now we've an opportunity to emerge. And so while I think the gig economy and that temporary working model is going to be here to stay, and I don't see any of the businesses that I would deal with having any great change of mind, because as they develop new products and services, they require specialist skills to develop those products and services. The people who are working in those roles will develop loyalty more to the profession than the brand that they will work for. And as a result, there's a far greater transferability of that individual from organization to organization. And so I can foresee a lot more of that. I can do a job for you in supply chain. I can do a job for you in technology, in DevOps or development work. And so you're going to find that splintering of those skill sets. But what's really important, and I think, and this I come back to the social conscience piece, that I definitely foresee, a lot of people fear contract work means, oh, I've no pension, no health care, they can discard me at any time, I've no security of tenure. But in actual fact, I'm already seeing, yes, I want, and organizations are saying, we want people to work on that contract, but we're prepared to offset some of the cost into certainly the benefit scheme so that it gives them the quality of life to raise themselves and families in a way that aligns with those sort of core values. And that's where the whole kind of, pride in Ireland. Yes, we're an open economy that is subject to the shocks and tremors and upsides of organizations such as Apple, Google, etc. But at the same time, we do have something that other countries don't have. And I think if we can bring that social conscience into that gig economy, we've got a really powerful combination. So yeah, creative thinking, problem solving, analysis of data and statistics. I think they're core areas that we'll see going forward. We can bolt in that social conscience, then we're certainly at a place where I think we've as a location, as a Midwest, we've a real differentiator alone.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And you took me, of course, the most of the people in the cafe today haven't had the benefit of that original presentation, but you've taken me from there to where we are now. Love the gig economy. It's obviously not your phrase, but it's a phrase that's been bandied. Sure, yeah. But I think it perfectly describes the world of work at the moment, and likely the world of work into the future. Love the fact that you said people who get trained in a profession will be loyal to the profession and not the brand, right? Which makes them employable, highly sought after, yeah. Which then in a funny sort of way brings us back around to what you said about some of the more switched on employers are now helping these gig economy people offset some of the costs of pension or whatever it might be, securities around tenure, without hiring them for life. But they're assisting them with that because they want to retain them. Yep. Because the cost of losing somebody and retraining somebody is significant. So it's a really interesting dynamic. It's certainly not all one-sided in favor of the employer as it may have appeared.
No. I mean, it is people will argue it's the commoditization of employment or recruitment, in that you can buy someone to do some specific task and you set it up in such a way that they deliver that task and then they move on. And so that's the downside in many ways, because you don't have that same security of tenure as that service is delivered. But what we're seeing more and more is that the organizations will say, well, we want that service delivered, but in addition to a pay rate, we'll facilitate the offering of other benefits. And where CPL in particular has grown is we are that staffing body, and I'm not saying this is unique to CPL by any stretch of the imagination, but we will act as the intermediary where we become the employer, and we look after the wellness, if you call it that, of that contractor. So we're giving that level of service to that individual, because they go and say, okay, if the market is therefore splintering and the commoditization that we talk about, an organization like CPL will be able to connect me with the steady flow of work around whatever my particular skill set is. And as I say, CPL aren't unique by any stretch of the imagination. This is just Graham looking at it from 2,000 feet. That I see that kind of trend kind of emerging. Definitely a very strong trend emerging, no doubt about it.
That's an incredible view of the world, Graham. So if I picked you up correctly, it's Johnny or Mary, they're very skilled in logistics, let's say, and it's the gig economy. So they find themselves now employed by CPL as a logistics specialist, and then CPL so they've got their security of tenure through CPL or others, but we're talking CPL today. Got the security of tenure there, and then they're hired out on a per gig basis. That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Yeah. CPL will have, and it's there in our annual report, but we'll have probably 12 to 13,000 contingent employees at any given time. In that subset, you probably have 2,500 to 3,000, which are employees, as you described, the logistics individual. It's someone that is definitely moved from organization to organization because of that skill set. Now, the commercial terms in which we agree with our customer varies depending on that level of engagement, obviously. But at the same time, we're definitely seeing that as a growing sector where an organization might make, and I'm not sitting too far away from one, but they may make contact lenses, and we all know who I'm perhaps referring to, somewhere over there. And they're non-core activities for that particular business or any business for that matter. And they think, you know what, there's probably a better way to do our filing. So why are we worried about filing when, we need to concentrate on the next generation of contact lenses that we need to export to the market in Asia, America, etc. So there's commoditization starting. That's the thought process. So the solution then gets bolted around that. And as I said, CPL is just one vehicle that delivers that. But that is definitely a consistent thread now throughout the employment market.
Yeah, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So companies get to focus on their core competence. And I suppose it goes back to the 80s, dare I say it, and I'm showing my age here again, when the likes of Campbell Catering, I worked for Bewley's for many years, and where they would go in and look after the catering needs of some factory somewhere, because that wasn't a core skill set of the factory per se. So it's taken that to a whole new level, is what I'm hearing here. So it's great, very exciting, very exciting.
Just reading one of the comments here about, sorry, I'm in the sun here. So yeah, it's someone who's on the call, obviously nursing, giving that as an example. And, healthcare is a big part of what CPL are doing, and it's definitely, it has pluses and minuses, but, someone wants to go to Australia for 12 months, they can do that on an easier basis because of the whole sort of flexibility of labour. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Come here, it's been a pleasure having you on the Coffee at 11 show, and we're not letting you go, by the way. But
I was putting the kettle on again, no?
No. You may wait for your second cup of coffee. No, it's a pleasure, genuine pleasure having you on. I really love getting real people coming in and being real about what's going on for them, because we all learn from it. So we're going to go to Q&A from the floor, because I'm quite sure there are some people in the cafe who'd like to ask you a question or two. Shelley will also go through all the comments that have come in, because there are lots. I see one in there from Sweden. Curious to see what that'll be. And but before we do that, Graham, I ask all of our guests in the cafe to offer one tip to their nearest and dearest. If you were to offer your nearest and dearest one tip as to how you would get through COVID best, come out in best shape by doing blah, what's that blah for you?
For me, is authenticity. Don't change who you are. Be real to yourself. And pick a point or pick a principle and stick to that. I've probably given you 4 or 5 there already, but I already mentioned earlier, my mother, who used to send over the packet of potato in the Irish Times, always had a phrase: treat others like you'd like to be treated yourself. And that's a principle I'll use day in, day out, wherever I am. And what I can see as we emerge from this pandemic, we're going to have a situation where that toolkit is stripped of various tools. So if anything, you remain true to who you are, be authentic, and you will definitely stand in good stead to emerge as a stronger person. It'll build resilience, etc. So you know what? It's all about going up the mountain, and you need to have energy and momentum to do that. So stick with who you are, because you'll get there.
I love it. Authenticity, and I think that's what we're getting from you this morning. So Bula Bus for Burns. Wonderful. Thank you, Graham. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to open it up to the cafe audience for questions. I hope you've got some really hard ones for Graham. That'd be lovely.
Can I
like to ask
any of these if I don't know the answer?
We'd like to ask Graham a question. Sarah Ward.
Hi, how you doing, Graham?
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Not too bad at all. I definitely, I'm very interested in what you're saying because of the recruitment side of it. I know my husband, he works out in Shannon, and he's always looking for good people. So I'm definitely going to give him your name and tell him to get on to you. His name is Jim Ward. I don't know if you've ever come across him, but he's always looking for good people, and he's in logistics. So okay. That's good. also agree with what you said about treat others like yourself, like you want to be treated yourself. That was hammered into us as children. My father used to always say we're all the same in our underwear. So basically treat each other with respect. Don't think you're better than anyone else. Like, so that was definitely one. But yeah, thanks for a very interesting talk. It was lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah, and I'll look forward to speaking to your husband at some point in the future. So thank you very much.
Lovely.
Sarah is our resident connector supreme. Thank you, Sarah.
Sounds like we definitely have a virtual coffee, so Sarah, it would work both ways.
Yeah, completely. Carl Daly is waving at the screen, so I'm going to bring Carl in, then I'm going to pass to Princess Shelley, if I may.
Morning all.
Hi, Carl.
Hey Graham, how are you?
Fancy meeting you here.
I haven't seen you in ages. No, I wanted to ask Graham just about the whole like people factor and jobs at the moment. Like some areas are obviously doing pretty well during the pandemic, and lots of areas are struggling. So are there actually, you know, the way people have been let go from places now, they may or may not get their jobs back depending on what happens, and how, you know, it could be an excuse for some employers maybe to just get rid of people. I don't know. I'm just wondering, how has the pandemic affected the jobs market in general?
Yeah, it's a great question, Carl. Definitely you can see hospitality, travel, retail, they're the ones that have been, savaged. There's no point in saying it. You look at the CSO statistics, I think 28% unemployment was, a figure that was come out there last week. So there's no getting away from the fact that we're into, something that we've never seen before. However, if you look at what the statistics will show, we're going to rebound from this. And I saw something to say that by the end of 2021, just at a higher level now, we'd probably be at an unemployment rate of about 7%. We were at about 4% when we we came through Christmas and January when we were there. So you can see that there's going to be a significant build-up of that. So let's hope that can be accelerated as quickly as possible. What we're seeing, the growth areas is definitely in a customer service type of environment, but a customer service environment where there's a technical slant, be it in a software business that are looking to scale up, be it in a financial services business, or be it in some sort of utilities. We in Limerick, is no kind of secret of the fact that we've probably seen another 100 people or so be involved in customer service activities with utilities. And by utilities, I'm giving a very broad description. Obviously, I'm restricted by what I can say in terms of confidentiality, but utilities, tech, and that financial services space. So I'd look at the hospitality sector. I've always said, by the way, in recruitment, if you're going to hire someone who's worked in a hotel. Why? Because they answer the phone within about 2 seconds. They're just naturally that way focused. So if you think about the core skills of people in the sectors that have been hit the most, and think about the transferability of those, in months and years gone by, people in financial services, tech, and utilities would have always come to us and said, no, give us people with experience in tech, financial services, and utilities. That's changing now because they see the value of the transferability of that individual. And so if that individual can in some way reinvent themselves or focus on, like what I'm saying, in terms of maybe upskilling or improving on certain skill sets, be that an Excel course, be that some form of call center improvement work, then they're putting themselves back into that kind of shop window, as it were. So while it's hard, I mean, let's face it, it's not easy right now. But I think as businesses start to reopen, the live register figures start to reduce, opportunities will come up for the people who maybe take a step back from this and think, you know what, I'm going to improve myself. And when I get into an environment, I'm really going to have strong customer service ethos. And I think you and I have spoken about this before. When we go into a coffee shop, we'll remember the customer experience we're going to get when we go in or into a retail environment when these businesses start reopening. And not just businesses that are reopening, all sorts of business. You're really going to have to work hard to prepare staff for the next wave of business growth, because you know what? People will expect something slightly different. I think you've got to give it to them.
Okay, yeah.
Brilliant question, Carl Daly. Thank you for that. Lovely to see you in the cafe, and super.
Good to be here.
There, and it brought me back to.
Answered you, Carl. Happy with that, are you?
Look, yeah, I'll talk to you about that afterwards. That wasn't great. No.
Security. Security.
Always trust Carl.
Okay, right. Before this gets out of hand, I'll make one quick comment. It goes back, dare I say it, to your loyalty of profession, or loyalty to profession stuff. So somebody in customer service in a hotel, love that analogy. They're loyal to that profession, but not necessarily not only to the brand, but not necessarily now to the sector. They take the skill set and they transfer it. And ladies and gentlemen, young Carl Daly there is joining us as our guest in the cafe on Thursday. You need to come in and listen to the man. He's got a wonderful view of the world. So really look forward to it. I'm going to go to Princess Shelley and she'll bring John Barry in.
Okay, I've been moderating the chat there. Anne Christine, who's joining us from Sweden, kicked off the comments with good morning to everyone. She's become a regular joiner of the cafe with us. It's great to see you again here, Anne. And then Tim Kelly, who is he's developing a routine of keeping us all on our toes. He's our resident pup, if you like, and he kept me on my toes and typed in "good for me, dag," Anne. So I apologise if I'm not saying that right. Did I do that right? Thank you, Anne. So I thanked him privately for keeping me on my toes with that one. And then Carl, who we've just heard from, and as Colm said, is a guest later on during the week. He was saying a good morning to everyone in the cafe. So yeah, we love to get all those good mornings and that kind of thing. Eamon, who is our head of guest services, Graham, he has popped in your platforms, your social media platforms there, your LinkedIn and your Twitter. So people can access you that way, Graham. So yeah. So, and then I also liked Liam Lynch was in the cafe. He's had to go, and everybody, we actually love that here in the cafe, that you've all got busy schedules, and when you can pop in to this wonderful place for the Coffee at 11 show, and then you may need to be somewhere else and you need to pop off, and they leave a comment, and that's what Liam's done. And Liam said, I've got to drop off, I'm afraid, as I have an 11:30. Just to echo Graham's experience and the move to Shannon. Back in 2001, I gave my girlfriend at the time 2 hours to decide if she wanted to leave the big smoke and come with me to Limerick after I got a job in Shannon. So bless her, she did. Thanks, folks. See you soon. So did you give your lady more than 2 hours to make that decision, Graham?
Yeah, we were in London at the time, but certainly 2 hours was ample, I reckoned, and the terms of the contract that we would have signed up, service level agreements, are have to be far faster than that these days, yeah.
So yeah.
25 years later, I'm still hearing about it.
That's it. That's the right job. She's right. So, and then Anne, I think you alluded and you saw the comment yourself there, I think, Graham. Anne, again, is in Sweden and joining us here in the cafe. Says this contract employment model that you were talking about earlier on is how many nurses choose to work nowadays. I have done it, and there are many good benefits with this, but of course, a little bit of uncertainty. It's definitely an alternative to a normal employment. So she's obviously got a level of familiarity with what you were talking about there. So thank you very much for that, Graham. And then Lisa, again, joining us in the cafe, another regular attendee, says, thanks, Graham, for your insights. Delighted to hear you talk about the importance of customer service, and customer service is the way to differentiate your business. So yeah, I think that deserves a nice round of applause there. And then Carl Daly just popped in again then to say, well done, Mr. Burns, fantastic as always. I think that was a guilty conscience, wasn't it, for kind of saying he wasn't happy?
It was, and I think it's maybe an attempt to have him spared from my questions on Thursday. But don't worry.
Suddenly realised that payback could be a kick. So just from my own point of view, before I hand back to Colm, Graham, I really love your metaphor on the toolkit. It's very easily understandable, and I love the importance that you place on the values. I think it really, really is something that is to be honoured and something we can all learn from. I think Colm may have mentioned we have one more question. Do we, Colm? Was it John? I'll pop you live there now. John, you're live if you'd like to ask a question to Graham.
Yep, well, more comment. Firstly, Graham, thanks for a great talk. And really positive, which is, I think, is the best thing about all. It's giving a rosy picture for the future. But it just reminds me of the couple of things. Firstly, I remember in the last recession back in 2009, a friend of mine from England, a good friend of mine, thought we were in serious trouble over here, was very concerned and contacted me and said, God, how are you? Are you surviving? And I said to him, oh yeah, we're surviving. The only difference is the parties are a bit smaller these days, that's all, because that's typical Irish. We are very, very entrepreneurial. We get out there, we don't let the crap upset us, we get out there and go for it. And that is the truest thing of all. And one of the most significant things is prior to this crisis, and you'll see this both on the recruitment side, we were crippled with lack of people. With any luck, we're talking 40,000 of people we were looking for. With any luck now, these people are now going to become available because companies are going to be, no question, shedding staff. There are going to be people in the marketplace now, and people hopefully who've had 6-8 weeks to think about life and possibly change their direction, more adaptable to new careers and things, plus the whole opportunity of home working. There's been a radical change in mindset in the last 8 weeks, I think, in the whole business environment, which I think is going to be nothing but positive for everybody. And Colm will recognize this expression, but I came across it years ago at a conference, and it's people's attitude, not their aptitude, that will decide their altitude. And I think that is so true, that people have got to know that they can't be restricted by what they were trained in a college, university, if they are. And that's why the hospitality industry is so good, because people are versatile in the hospitality industry. And I think we are looking at a very rosy future, especially when we say goodbye to our English friends in Britain, and we are the only English-speaking country in Europe. I think we will be a gold mine here. I really do. Thank you, Graham. A great talk.
Thank you very much for a really valuable addition to today's interview, John. Thank you very much, and thank you, Graham. I'll pop you back now over to the hands of your wonderful host, Mr. Colm O'Brien. Thank you.
Can I just, before we actually switch off, but I'm intrigued as to where Princess Shelley's name Princess came from. So maybe you don't want to disclose that on air, but I've never been introduced by a princess before, so I'm just wondering, is she a real one, or is this some name that Colm O'Brien dreamed up?
It's real. I can't help it. The crown fits. I have to wear it.
You polished that crown now well this afternoon. You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Shelley, go on, put him out of his misery. Tell him the story.
I'm a dance teacher, and I always tell my children that Ireland was short of princesses, so I am one. I didn't know I was, and ever since then, people pass me in the street, parents send me text messages. Hi, Princess Shelley, is the class on? Hi, Princess Shelley, when's the show? Hi, Princess Shelley. So everybody, it's just catching. So I said, you know what? The crown fits. Let's wear it.
Brilliant story.
And Graham, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm dealing with.
You're not too bad. You're not doing too bad.
No, I tell you, we are so blessed. We're so blessed. Brand, systems, and people. They're the three things we all need to build businesses. Brand, systems, and people. Brand is a promise. The systems are what we put around us to develop, to deliver on the promise. And people is key. And I'm absolutely blessed in all walks of life to have wonderful people that for some reason stick around, which is just wonderful. Thank you everybody for getting involved in that. Fascinating. It really was a fascinating conversation, Graham. Thank you for that. Lovely to have a cup of coffee with you in this environment. You know, it's the new style cafe. Bring your own coffee and jump in and have a chat and have a near week. So that was really fabulous. So ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Graham Burns, our special guest this morning. Fabulous. I noticed it was great to have Lisa in from Griffin Solutions. who happens to work in the area of teaching people about customer service, just putting that out there for what it's worth. And John Barry happens to be involved in recruitment, just putting that out there for what it's worth. And Carl Daly happens to be just a stirrer, just putting that out there for what that's worth. Looking forward.
He's not the worst. He's not the worst.
No, it's great. Carl, I'm delighted that you're going to join us. And this man has had such a fascinating pivot in terms of his career in the last number of years. I'm so looking forward to hearing all about that. So you need to come back on Thursday. Before I let you all go, I want to thank special guest Graham Burns for being here. Thank you for that, Graham. The team in the Zoom Cafe, we've got Princess Shelley, who produces the show, Eamon Smith, who's our maitre d', was the phrase that came up while you were away. Katrina O'Brien, who's our editor-in-chief and does a wonderful job at pulling all this together at the end of the day and resharing it. Looking forward to that immensely. And I'd like to let you know, please, I see she's on the call, but she's in the cafe, I should say, but incognito. Our special guest for tomorrow is a lovely lady from Donegal with a fabulous accent. And her name is Sarah Gillespie. And Sarah is founder and CEO of a business called Rinka Kids Fitness. And it's basically kids fitness. Oh, there she's come on. It's lovely to see you, lovely to see you. And it's basically kids fitness through Irish dance and play and all these things. And it comes from Sarah's early years where she was a champion Irish dancer. And then something happened. And I'm not going to tell you about what happened. You got to come back in tomorrow to hear what happened. Something happened. You won't believe. That's why Sarah's got this wonderful business today. So Sarah, really looking forward to that tomorrow. I won't let you in today, but really looking forward to that tomorrow. So you might all consider coming back in tomorrow at 11 with your cups of coffee in honour of this lady's story. So once again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you all. Thanks to the team. Thanks to special guest Graham. Thanks to wigwam.ie SME Peer Support for supporting this venture. And look forward to seeing you all when we see you. And I'll finish by saying, Graham Burns, namaste.